Do you want to be a big, burly brute of a man? Someone who can just carry a giant axe and lop the heads off rats with ease? Well, then you've come to the right place. Let's talk about Foot Knight. Foot Knight, man. His passive ability, Protective Presence. An aura that reduces damage by 15%. Pretty cool. He's a tank class. It makes sense. Career skill, Valiant Charge. Marcus charges forward, slamming into enemies and knocking them back. Pretty useful if there's a big horde. Low cooldown, pretty good ability. He's also got Tal's Fortitude. Grants an extra stamina shield. Nice. No Guts, no Glory. Reduces damage taken by an additional 10%. So you now have a 25% reduced damage combination there. So that's all well and good. Let's talk about temp health. For this build, I'm going to be using the halberd. So I like Bloody Unstoppable. Damaging multiple enemies in one swing with a melee weapon grants temporary health up to 5 enemies in one swing. So that's 5 temp health max in one swing. You also have staggering enemies with melee attack grants temporary health. And either one of these be good with this build, but I'm just kind of partial to the damaging multiple enemies one. I like to swing a lot, so this one works for me, but staggering works just as well. And then down here you have Staggering Force, increases stagger power by 35%. Kind of an interesting, unique talent, but it's interesting. You also have Crowd Clear. Pushing an enemy increases attack speed by 15% for 3 seconds. This one's definitely useful on this guy because some of his weapons are very slow, but not this one. I like Have At Thee. Staggering an elite enemy increases power by 15% for 10 seconds. Just lets you do a little extra damage. And then for the stagger, I like Bulwark. Enemies that you stagger take 10% more damage from melee attacks for 2 seconds. Then you deal 20% more damage to staggered enemies, up to 40%. The kind of standard combination for most of these stagger talents. I don't use Bulwark very much on things. I like it for this because I do a lot of charge attacks with the halberd, and I'm going for a long sweeping motion and then a headshot, punch forward kind of attack. So this one allows me to clear the horde with the side swipe, and then I do a little extra damage on that headshot. And if I have this going as well, it can be pretty good. You also have Mainstay. I don't recommend this for this build unless you're using like a shield or something that staggers quite a bit. You also have Enhanced Power, which also works well. That gives you 10% damage, extra damage across the board. This includes your range weapon. It's interesting if you want to be maybe a little more well-rounded, but I'm partial to Bulwark personally. And then down here you have actually some interesting talents. You have Tallest Champion, increases power level by 10%, but you lose any and all damage reduction, and you can't help your allies with damage reduction as well. So it's interesting. If you want to try to go for that more DPS build, this would be the one, but not the way I choose to go. Then you have Defensive Formation, increases damage reduction from Protective Presence by an additional 5%, so you can have 30% damage reduction. This one I don't think is very good because it's just, to me, it just feels like a waste of a talent slot. 5% reduced damage by itself, not very helpful. You already have 25% reduced damage, an extra 5% isn't going to make a huge difference. That's why I like Rock of the Reichland over here. Protective Presence also grants 20% block cost reduction. So this aura that reduces damage taken by 15%, that spreads to your nearby allies, and now with this talent, your nearby allies and you all get 20% extra block cost reduction. Pretty cool. Definitely very helpful. And then down here you have its hero time, increases movement speed by 30% when an ally is incapacitated. That's useful if you want to be the guy that like picks people up when they go down, but you want to get maybe a little farther away from the squad, which I don't really recommend. But this just allows you to move super fast and get back to them in time. It's helpful. You have Counter Punch. Blocking an attack removes the stamina cost of pushing for 1 second. Also kind of more of a shield talent. Useful, definitely, if you're going to be blocking a lot, but not for the purposes of this build. I like That's Bloody Teamwork. Reduces damage taken by 5% for each nearby ally. So, the way I play, I like to try to stay close to my team at all times. So I already have 25% increase, or reduced damage reduction. And with this, you can get, when you're close to everybody, 15% more damage reduction. I mean, that's 40% damage reduction when you're near your team. That's pretty tanky right there. Then for the final down here, Valiant Charge grants invulnerability for 3 seconds. I like this one because, if there's like a monster and I'm low on health, I can do that, knock him back, and if I take a hit during those 3 seconds, not a big deal. It's just something to keep me alive, to help me not lose health. If there's a big pack of plague monks coming at you and you charge them, normally one of those will probably hit you at least once. That's why I like invulnerability. Just keeps you from getting hit. Another good one down here is Trample. Enemies hit by Valiant Charge take 20% increased damage for 15 seconds. Does not stack with similar effects. So, this is if you want to do the dash where you go through the whole horde, you knock everybody down, and then they take increased damage. I used to use this one quite a bit. I still do sometimes. It's very good if you want to go for the maybe Taos Champion kind of DPS build, right? But I'm going for more of a tanky build. So either of these two would be pretty good. You also have Bull of the Ostland down here. Each enemy hit with Valiant Charge grants 3% attack speed for 10 seconds. Stacks up to 10 times. So that's potentially 30% increased attack speed, which could be pretty nice if you're going for a sword and mace kind of thing. But I'm not doing that. So these are the talents that I like to use for this build. Now we'll talk about the gear. I of course like the halberd. Crit chance, attack speed, swift slaying, pretty standard stuff for a melee weapon. I like this weapon because it's unique because it has such long range. I think it might have the longest range of any weapon in the game, other than maybe the spear. I don't know. His spear has some pretty long range too. But this is a great melee weapon. A lot of people like the Executioner's Sword. I think it's very good as well. I go for crit chance, crit power on that with swift slaying. Although I feel like the Executioner's Sword is somewhat nerfed on Foot Knight. I think it works better on a Mercenary Kruger because you have Smiter, which lets you do a lot more damage on that overhead charge attack, that first hit. So that's, the Mason Sword too, which is alright. It's a bit slow for my taste. The halberd's, in my opinion, is the best one. It's got armor piercing, it's got wide sweeps, pretty decent headshot damage. I like it. Another good one people will sometimes use the Great Hammer here. This is one that's good for kind of keeping you alive, right? So you're not going to do a ton of damage with this weapon, but it's good for controlling hordes, decent headshot damage. It's not bad. I used to use this one quite a bit, but I've grown preferential to the halberd. I will say with the halberd though, it does take some getting used to. It's kind of got some weird motions to it. It just takes a little bit of practice, but this is the one I would recommend. And then for the gun, repeater, pretty standard for this guy. I like crit chance, crit power. Barrage makes absolute complete sense with this gun. You just hold that right click when there's a monster, you'll wind up and you'll do 8 shots right in a row. Each one will increase in damage. It's just a nice way to be able to make Foot Knight do a little extra damage. Then on the necklace, I go for health. I believe every character in Vermintide should use health as much as they can get. And I go for block cost reduction. That stacks with the Rock of the Reichland here, giving you a nice 50% block cost reduction. And then Barkskin, he's a tank character, so it makes sense. 2 hits, and you have 40% reduced damage for 2 seconds. Already stacking with your potentially up to 40% reduced damage if you're near your team, making for an 80% reduced damage if you get hit twice. Just a nice tanky combination right there. And then for the charm, Power versus chaos, attack speed, pretty simple here, you know. I would definitely recommend attack speed with this. You don't have to go power versus chaos. You could go berserkers, you could go, you know, Skaven, armored. It really doesn't matter too much. I'm just partial to chaos because those guys have a little more health than Skaven. You know, chaos counts for beastmen too. And then I like concoction. You know, his cooldown's pretty low already, so you drink any kind of potion, you'll get that back. You'll get, you know, a short burst of speed and strength and all this crazy stuff going on. It's pretty cool. I like concoction. And then down here for the trinket, curse resistance, obviously, crit chance. I love shrapnel. You take a grenade, a bomb, you chuck it on a monster. A shade sneaks up behind that monster, 20% increased damage, just like that. Magnifique. And there you have it.